Hey everybody, it's Evan Grant, Dallas Morning News. But if you're here, you probably knew that. It is time for our weekly Ranger stream to answer all of your questions, which I assume will all be highly frustrated in nature, um, because this club's not playing well and there's a lot of unanswered questions, or maybe the questions do have answers and the Rangers just aren't going to um, act on them until they absolutely have to, which is the August 3rd trading deadline. Um, but I'm here for the next foreseeable future to answer your questions. I just want to go over a couple of quick disclaimers, whatever. If you haven't watched us before and you're here for the first time and you like the product, please give it a like and please subscribe to the channel. We are so close to 2,000 subscribers, and I would like to get to that level. It's a real first kind of year goal. So I appreciate all of that. Um, Secondly, you can always reach me at X. Depending on my mood, I will either be highly sarcastic or very helpful. Um, and you can always email me at egrant@dallasnews.com. And with that, and I say a lot, and hopefully producer Joey will at some point in time keep an counter just so we can maybe make an outtake video of that. But let's get to some Rangers talk because there's a lot to talk about. I just want to go over a couple of things real quick as we get started here on this club. Um, there's one. Last night was a frustrating game for the Rangers. There have been a lot of frustrating games for the Rangers, particularly lately. Particularly where the offense is concerned. How the Rangers managed to score a run in the first inning and had a situation to make it a big inning, didn't score anymore, and the only two hits, or the only three hits they got the rest of the game, were two solo homers from Jack Peterson and a two-out single from Danny Jansen, who had been in an awful slump. Can't add on runs, can't manufacture runs, and that was the offensive side. And look, the frustrations on the offensive side for fans I know are numerous, and hopefully we'll get to some questions about that. There was also a situation last night where I think the Rangers may have outthought themselves a little bit. The eighth inning of this game against Houston, it was a 2-2 tie at that point in time. You had Yordan Alvarez coming up, who was absolutely destroyed Ranger pitching, particularly at Globe Life Field. He had already hit a home run in the game and had four homers in the first three games of this series. The Rangers brought in Tyler Alexander to start the inning, a lefty, so that you had a lefty on lefty matchup. I thought the approach would be to not really give Alvarez anything to hit and hope that he got himself out. And if you got to a situation where it was kind of a hopeless count, that you would just go ahead and send him to first base. Well, first part of that worked, I guess, as they were intended. They certainly threw nothing. Alexander threw nothing in the strike zone, and Alvarez didn't offer it any of them. At 3-0, the Rangers had Alexander throw whether they decided it or catcher Danny Jansen decided or Alexander decided, I'm not sure on that. But Alexander threw a sweeper. It's the one pitch that Alvarez has had some trouble with this year. Hasn't hit a home run off a lefty throwing that kind of breaking ball in 2 years. And his numbers, I think the numbers I had in my story said that he was a 181 hitter against them the last 2 years. Well, the pitch landed in the strike zone, and then it landed at the back of behind the Rangers bullpen. And it was just a defeating moment. The game got worse after that because obviously Alexander then walked the next hitter, Christian Walker, threw away a bunt, and the Astros added another run. When the Rangers got a home run from Jack Peterson, they couldn't come up with a way to manufacture a fourth run to tie the game. So I wrote that it was an egregious mistake, and I think the egregiousness here from me is the idea that at 3-0 you would still attempt to be competitive in the at bat. I don't know if Alexander meant to throw the ball on the outside corner of the zone. He got it on the outer third, But I think that if you go back and look at Jordan Alvarez's numbers in this ballpark, he loves this ballpark, loves to hit here, uh, crushes Rangers pitching. And I think at that point in time, the better part of valor would have been to simply walk him. Now, the complication there is you've now put the go ahead run on first base, and you still have a bad matchup with Christian Walker coming up. So it was a not ideal situation no matter what the Rangers did. If they had walked him intentionally, it would have been better to start the inning with a right hander and then have a right hander in to face Walker. Um, but I think this again speaks to this particular moment speaks again to what I've come to believe about the Rangers, and that is they have no room for error, whether it's a manager error or a pitcher error, because this offense struggles so badly at the fundamentals of baseball. They have no room for any mistakes whatsoever. And when one mistake happens, whether it's in execution or strategy, it is going to come back to really hurt this club. They have to play perfect baseball on in every other aspect of the game because their offense simply doesn't function as it was intended to do. So that's my Monday morning, although it's Thursday afternoon, Monday morning quarterback or second guess of this whole situation. I think the more and more I think about it, there are so many other issues with this club, uh, from some fundamental fielding issues, as we saw with Alexander throwing the ball away, to the lack of being able to manufacture a run. The Rangers had three situations in the game after the first inning where I thought there were opportunities to manufacture a run. Fourth inning, Evan Carter walks with one out, steals second base. Ezekiel Duran needed to put the ball in play. Now he was ill and he was battling some stomach bug, uh, but you need to get the runner to third base at least. You need a productive out there. Now I know it would still be a two-out situation, and you've got Danny Jansen who was in a miserable slump coming up, but you got to put the ball in play. Duran, Jansen both strike out. Seventh inning, Carter leads off. Opportunity here to create a run with the ideally to create a run. If Carter had put down a bunt, shortstop was playing. Third baseman was playing off the bag. He was playing in, but kind of in uh, to the shortstop side of the position. First baseman Walker was playing at normal depth. There was a great opportunity for a drag bunt or even a bunt placed up the third base line to get that inning started. Now, the complication here is you've got Justin Foscue now in for Ezekiel Duran. You've got Jansen and you've got Nicky Lopez due up. None of those are, at this point in time, guys that are either capable of productive type outs in those situations. Lopez is, but Lopez only would have come up with two outs. He did, and he popped up to second. Ninth inning, same thing. Carter comes up, opportunity, and now it's a one-run game. Lay down a bunt, doesn't. Foscue, he strikes out. Foscue grounds out. Danny Jansen strikes out. End of game. And I look at that, and again, I say the Rangers are talking about manufacturing offense. They aren't actually attempting to manufacture offense. I think that falls on Carter. He needed to show the bunt. I do not think he's confident in his ability to bunt for a hit. That's the only takeaway that I can get from that. I also go back to what the bottom half of that lineup looks like. How are you going to manufacture a run there? Do you have confidence in any of those guys to deliver the things that you need to do to create a run? Lopez, a recent acquisition. I'm not making Nicky Lopez out to be a savior by any stretch. Lopez, ideally a guy, if you get a leadoff guy on, he can either hit and run, put the ball in play, or bunt. But he was a ninth place hitter, and so he was only going to come up with two outs. So, end of story. Let's get to questions. I know you guys have a lot. I'm sorry that I prattled on for so long, but I know that there's a lot that we want to talk about. So we've already got a ton of questions in there. And I'm going to try and get to as many as I can. Charles Tucker, the leadoff man, who is calling me by my last name. Hey, Grant. I read your article about the team changing the style of play and to try to score runs. Glad to see they still have fight. Is it time we take the game to the opponent? Yes. Yes, Charles, that's what I'm saying. And the question here is, do the Rangers have the personnel to do it? This was a team built to slug. They're not slugging. They're not hitting line drives, which is probably the weapon of choice uh, at Globe Life Field. And they're not doing that. So um, I guess it's worth trying the idea of manufacturing runs with the pieces there that can do that, but they have to be willing to do that. Um, there was another opportunity, by the way, to manufacture run, and that came after Sam Haggerty walked immediately following the Peterson homer. Didn't steal second. Brandon Nimmo struck out. Josh Young popped up. Jake Berger struck out. So I count 4 opportunities for run manufacturing last night alone that didn't, in no situation did a Ranger batter advance the runner. The only advance was Evan Carter stealing second base after his walk in the 4th inning. Not a great indicator of a team that is steeped in run manufacturing. And listen, I believe the Rangers as a whole, when it comes to the idea of run manufacturing, are like about 28 other teams. Certainly the Tampa Bay Rays, the leading edge thinkers in baseball, are among the outliers. But this is a game that now is transitioning back to old school thinking, that you have to understand the fundamentals and situations of baseball. And I just don't think many teams understand them. The players don't understand them, and they don't execute them. Do I sound salty this morning? I'm a little bit. Um, I don't know how to pronounce your name. Botini. I'm sorry. Hi, Grant. Good afternoon. I hope you're well. On many occasions, it has already been discussed whether the Rangers should sell or not, taking into account Chris Young's philosophy. Is it possible to identify something like trade Berger and Higgy, acquire a more prolific catcher, Jock Foskey first base, and then pave the way to acquire a bat without thinking about position? Um, Listen, here's what I'll say on this. I think that it has come time. The Rangers have played a third of the season. They have June ahead of them, just double checking the schedule, in which they will play 9 games at home. They have not played winning baseball on the road in a long, long time. So the idea that they're going to make up a bunch of ground in June is not ideal. Is not trending in that direction. And my point on all this is there's not much for the Rangers to do right now. There's not much for the Rangers to do until mid-July in terms of making a decision whether they're buying or selling. I think what they have to do at this point is prepare for the worst, hope for the best. They have to start game planning. How are we going to attack the trade deadline? I think there are 3 elements here, if you're going to sell, that need to be taken into account. One is you've got to, I think at this point in time, since the minor league system is so barren and so far away from producing real contributors, with the exception of potentially Sebastian Walcott next year, you have to consider trading off everything you have of value. Now, you ask, is it possible to identify something like trade Berger and Higgy? I don't think Jake Berger's got a ton of value for a winning club right now because of the strikeout to walk rate. I think he is. I think he is considered. I don't want to say he's an easy out, but I think there are ways to pitch to him. Higgy is a good receiver and works well with pitchers. Can't throw very well, and he's, the Rangers' catching position has provided absolutely no offense, either one. So I don't know that there's any value there. The value is going to come from guys like Seager, DeGrom, Evaldi, potentially Josh Young. Who knows? Maybe Mackenzie Gore and Brandon Nimmo. Those are the things that would potentially bring some value. And the second element of all of this is if you talk about trading any of the big 3, Seager, DeGrom, Evaldi, there's a lot of money left on their contracts. Evaldi, the smallest, because I think he'd have about $37 million left over the rest of this year and next year. If you want to operate this like a business, then you're going to ask teams to take on those full salaries. If you want to operate this like you are taking the trade deadline as an opportunity to rebuild your franchise, then you have to be willing to eat as much of those contracts as is possible in order to buy your way to a better prospect package. You've already committed to spending $205 or $210 million on payroll this year, and so that's something that Ray Davis is really going to have to swallow hard on and consider. If the Rangers don't want to go through a long-term rebuilding process, if you're going to sell, you better be willing to sell in bulk, and you better be willing to pick up the remaining salary. The third element here is I also don't think that even if you really restock the farm system, are you going to be able to contemplate winning in 2027, um, regardless of whatever the new labor situation is? And if you want to accelerate the rebuild so that it is a 1 or 2 year process rather than a 4 year coin flip, then you're going to have to reinvest in terms of free agents to round the team out, um, and give this team an opportunity to win more quickly than later. That's all I can say. So, and there is another complication, right? Because there is the CBA situation going into 2027. We don't know what labor is going to be. We don't know how much baseball will be played. We don't know how teams are going to view taking on contracts, that include 2027 as part of the mix. That's all kind of a wild card, and we'll sort out as we approach the deadline, I think. All right. What's the latest on Corey Seager? He ran bases yesterday. He's still a little bit away from swinging the bat. I think Wyatt Langford is going to beat him back, from the IL. Langford took batting practice on the field yesterday. I think he's supposed to face a live batting practice on Friday. If he does that, recovers well, he could go out on a rehab early next week. Now, he's missed over a month, so I think he's going to have to get, you know, 15, 20 at bats before he's ready. 15, 20 plate appearances at least. Maybe the Rangers bring him back a little quicker than that, but I think you're talking, if you get Wyatt Langford back by the time you host Cleveland on June 5th, that's about the best case scenario, I think. And I think Seager is going to be later than that. Could Seager be ready when the Rangers go to Kansas City and Boston? I don't know. We've got to see how Corey Seager progresses once he actually swings a bat. The Rangers thought this was going to be a 10-day process. It's now going into week 3. And there you have it. All right, here's a name I can pronounce. Rarities. Is Skip too stubborn to not intentionally walk Alvarez? So, again, strategically, I don't think you want to intentionally walk the go-ahead run to start the 8th inning of a tie game. It doesn't leave you with many attractive choices against Alvarez, which is basically to pitch around him and hope that he gets himself out. He doesn't get himself out often in this ballpark. I did think of one thing last night, and I haven't had a chance to talk with Skip about it, but when I wrote a profile on him after he took the manager job, and we were kind of talking about different stuff in life, and he had mentioned he likes, we both like bourbon, and he's a Buffalo Trace guy. All the brands that come through Buffalo Trace, like Buffalo Trace and certainly Weller's, but he loves the idea of Buffalo Trace because he loves buffaloes, because buffaloes run to the storm, not away from it, and in other words, he likes to face challenges head on instead of running away from them. So I'm sure that, if that's his mentality, there's some thought we have to figure out a way to get Yordan Alvarez out. And they haven't figured it out yet. So I don't know if that answers the question for you, Rarities, but I don't want to say he's too stubborn. I think that the Rangers tried to figure out a way in a competitive game to get outs, and without putting the winning run on base, who they would have then pinch run for. The Rangers aren't great at holding runners, and so you're very possibly giving the Astros second base automatically in a tie game. The counter is the guy hit another homer, and so it just it's a it's a passel of unattractive choices. End of story on that. From Grego, good luck answering questions from the YouTube hitting coaches. Listen, all the fans are passionate. I know I've said to some fans in recent days that we in the media, my job as a beat writer is to be more unemotional, and to take that. There's another get that to 12, Joey. Get it to 12. Our approach is to be more rational than fans can be. We have to look for understanding what the thinking was, because you can have a bad outcome with good thinking. I do think that the Rangers have to start looking at the evaluation process on what they did with this offense 3 years ago. It just has not worked. They've gotten worse, if possible, at hitting fastballs. They've shown no real progress there. And Jake Berger he's been a very streaky hitter who can carry the offense for a series or maybe even a week, but then when he goes dark, he goes completely dark. You need a little bit more consistency in your offense. If he's not going to be able to hit home runs, he's got to be able to work a few more walks, or he's got to be able to put the ball in play and advance a runner, particularly with less than 2 outs. You've just got to move guys along. The strikeouts in those situations can't keep piling up. So I don't think that the Rangers, I don't think, listen, I do think Donnie Ecker's approach was very common with big league hitting coaches these days, which has been, let's get our best swing off in each situation. Don't care if you miss a ball that's on the outside corner. Don't care if you take a breaking ball that's not in your ideal spot. Let's get our best hit swings off in our best situations. Pitching is advanced ahead of hitting. Hitters have got to find ways to combat them at the plate better. That means having more adjustability in your swing. That means focusing more on contact. And so I do think that philosophy throughout baseball is changing a little bit. But in large part, I don't think the Rangers hitting coaches have given bad advice or bad messaging. I think that the Rangers have gotten caught with a number of teams, because if you look at Major League Baseball, let's give you the update today. Today, I'm going to give you the league OPS. The league OPS, the MLB OPS, average OPS is 706. It's a terrible hitting league. And the game is not entirely fun to watch when the at-bats are not good and when runners don't move and there's no real action. So I think hitting coaches and I think players and I think player development throughout the league have to focus more on well-rounded, complete, team-centric offensive approaches. It's something Brandon Nimmo has talked to his teammates about recently. I think he's really kind of been out front about that, and I think it's something that the Ranger hitters need to really understand better. First of all, understand what you're good at. If you're Evan Carter, and he acknowledged this to me yesterday, if you're Evan Carter, you're not going up there to hit fly balls. You're not going to be a 30 home run guy. You've got 15, 20 home run power, but your edges are putting the ball in play, hitting line drives, using your speed. That's what he has to do. And if that means putting down an occasional bunt, yes. If that means lowering his launch angle a little bit to cut down on the fly balls, even if he's beating a few more balls into the ground, he's going to get more hits than if he pops up. So that is something I think that goes throughout this team and throughout the league. And I know it's been frustrating for Ranger fans to watch. It's been frustrating for their coaches to watch. It's frustrating for two managers now to watch. But it is where this team is at, and it's time for some self awareness. Another question from Rarities. Why did they DFA McCutcheon and not someone else? Maybe Haggerty or someone else. Listen, I don't. I think Andrew McCutcheon's story was great. I thought he had a good personality. Thought he had a great spring. I think he was frustrated by the fact that there were not more opportunities against left-handed pitchers. That was just kind of luck of the draw. And I don't think an everyday player like he is really was able to get in any kind of groove. You factor in this that the Rangers have a full-time DH in Jock Peterson, and basically what they signed McCutcheon to do was be a DH against left-handed pitching. So you're using two bodies on the DH spot, where I think most teams would like to use no regular player. They'd like to alternate that or roll it through the lineup as they could to get guys off their feet. But you're using two players on one position. McCutcheon doesn't have great speed anymore. He catches balls that he gets to, but I wouldn't call him a real defensive asset any longer. And so when you look at it, what could he add to the team? And the results just weren't showing it. Haggerty has speed. He's more willing to take a walk. If they're going to play more small ball, Haggerty kind of fits that role a little bit. I hate the term small ball, but it's run manufacturing, it's run optimization. Uh, and that I just think, Haggerty can also play some infield. So, no, Sam has not gotten off to a great start this year either. He's also had very little playing time. But the way this team is situated right now, I just think that those guys fit better than a DH type body who doesn't have off the charts hitting ability any longer and doesn't have any other standout skills. Now, he was great in the clubhouse. But look, you can be great in the clubhouse if you've got a losing record. That's kind of an oh well thing. Great. Can we get a hit here? And that's just kind of where the Rangers are at. I think signing McCutcheon and keeping him was more an indictment of what the Rangers did this offseason with the ownership deciding to cut back salary and resources. The Rangers left themselves perilously thin on depth options, looking for bargain basement pieces to fill out the roster. They took a flyer on McCutcheon, and good on him for winning away onto the roster. But the Rangers just shouldn't have found themselves in that position in the middle of February. End of story. Yes, we have Kevy Kev says, let's not forget the Haggerty leadoff walk. Yeah, that was the walk right after Peterson. I mentioned that, so yes, I get it. Correct. All right, we're gonna move to Brian. Brian, I think I've answered the question about why do they pitch to Alvarez. They're not just going to give up on a player completely. But let's go to your second question. Is there any excuse for an MLB player not being able to bunt? Excuse? No. Can I give you some reasons? I'll give you some reasons. I don't think that many organizations have spent the last 10 years focusing in the minor leagues on let's really get bunts down. Let's use the bunt as a weapon. And so these players have spent their entire minor league development time not really focused on that. And so now they're having to develop this new tool at the big league level. I think it goes back to how the game has, I don't want to say evolved because I think it's gone backwards. But I think it goes back to the idea that teams just didn't value the bunt, so they didn't teach it. And now it needs to be part of offenses. You've got to put the ball in play. The era of the idea that strikeout is just another out, I think is gone. You've got to use outs to create production. Um, why defend Jock by saying he has an above average OBP? He's paid way above average. Look, there's nothing you can do about what the salary was at that point in time. If the Rangers had it to do over again, I think they would have used that $36 million differently. Uh, they got some resources kind of later in the winter, late December. Wanted to continue to work on an offense that was struggling. Jock had crushed right-handed pitchers, and so they gave that spot. They gave him that spot. Last year was a terrible year. Jock was embarrassed by it. But what I know, what I can tell you this year is that Jock Peterson is sitting here again. These are the league averages, right? The league average OPS is 706, and the league average on base percentage is 318. The league average batting average is 240. Well, Jock Peterson is hitting 250 with a 361 on base percentage, 430 slug, and a 791 OPS. Jock Peterson is not the problem, and he does have a tool that fits into where this offense needs to be right now. His at bats are disciplined, productive. There's an idea when he goes to the plate. In the last couple of games, he's shown a little bit of resurgent power. I don't know if that's for real or if that's just a couple of good swings. But Jock Peterson is providing something that fits into the Rangers offense. He's getting on base at a much higher rate than league average. His on base percentage is 20% above league average. That's not just slightly above average. I can't call up the on base leaders here real quick. Well, let's do that. Let me see if I can do that real quick. Let's just on base percentage. So in the American League, 10th in the American League in on base percentage is 384. So Jock is, on the verge of being in the top 10 in the American League in on base percentage. Is he limited defensively? For sure. And I think we've seen both with, a game in Yankee Stadium in right field, he struggles. That was a day game. I sound like I'm making excuses, but yeah, he struggled in right field. So did a lot of other Rangers that day. He's not great at first base, but he is bringing something to the table offensively that the Rangers can use. Charles, what's the latest on the CBA? I saw some stories yesterday that the MLBPA was ready to present their first 15, Joey, their first offer or their first proposal to the owners. I haven't looked through it entirely. I do think I saw that they wanted to double the minimum player salary, and I think they were willing to raise the luxury tax threshold to $300 million. I've got to see what the full scale of the proposal is before I can really render any thoughts on it. But I'm going to tell you here, I really think that baseball, we all love baseball, and we consider it a game, and we're passionate about it, and the players get paid very well. Careers are short. The market in baseball has shown that there are teams that are willing to pay these salaries to these players. And so I think it's more, the burden is more on the owners to come up with a system in which they acknowledge that this is not a business in which you're going to make a ton of money year over year. It's about franchise values. Now, their argument right now is that franchise values would go up a lot more if you had more cost certainty with salary caps, whether they're loose or hard caps, whatever. You would have more cost certainty, and that would make the franchise values go up. I think that I really think, especially with the San Diego Padres just selling for what, like $3.9 million? $3.9 billion? I think there is evidence that ownership is doing okay. And so I don't know how this is going to turn the CBA negotiations. Best I can say on it. Where did we go? Okay. Brian, why does no one in the media hold Corey Seager responsible? Why does he never interview? Can't you request an interview? Maybe it is time to move on from him. Brian, we talk to Corey Seager as much as possible. He has I'm not sure what the accountability here is. I mean, we have all mentioned how poor Seager's season has been. We have mentioned that he is in a career long 0 for 27. I've cited any number of stats that are quote unquote accountability stats, and that's what baseball is. The accountability is in your production. He doesn't give great answers. No, he doesn't. He is a terrific hitter. That's what you're paying him for. Hasn't hit this year. Completely fair to criticize that. Completely fair to criticize the idea that I'm not going to sit here and say he's a soft player, but he's injury prone. He has any number of he's a big shortstop, has any number of soft tissue injuries. It is imperative that you get him days off his feet and off to keep him healthy. I don't know that the the back injury that he's dealing with now was a product of playing 20 straight games at shortstop. Nobody's got any evidence of that, but I do think you've got to care for him differently. I look at it this way: Corey's never going to be the face of the franchise. The Rangers may pay him franchise money. He's never going to be the face of the franchise. The Rangers made a decision last winter to move on from the Marcus Semien Corey Seager dynamic. They brought in Brandon Nimmo. Now, Brandon Nimmo is not the hitter or the offensive threat, and as he says, he's not a unicorn. Corey's a unicorn. But what Brandon does have in his ability is to be proactive with other players. And not every player has this, and very few do. The ability to be proactive in going to players and offering them advice, and two, creating a very welcoming environment in which players feel comfortable coming to him and where it's not a burden on his game preparation to talk with players. That's very rare in the game, and it is what you would like to have in the perfect player. Well, you don't have that from Corey Seager, perhaps. You do have it from Brandon Nimmo, and what I would focus on right now is that the Rangers have a guy capable of doing the things that go with being a face of the franchise. His interviews are always very thoughtful. He spent 10 minutes with the media after the no-hitter on Monday. He had multiple conversations with players on Tuesday. When we need to talk to him, he is available, forthright, and honest. And so I guess my focus is the Rangers finally do have that guy in the clubhouse. I don't care who it is, but they do have that guy in the clubhouse in Brandon Nimmo. If it makes it easier for Seager once he's healthy to go back to finding Corey Seager of old, great. That's what the Rangers need. They need Corey Seager to be a 300 hitter and an 850 OPS guy. End of story. From Braden Brower. Sell for prospects. Oh boy, they haven't developed a long-term producing prospect in a decade. Yeah, well, I mean, if you got to sell, you got to sell. I mean, that's the bottom line. I can't speak about the past. I think I've talked about how I think player development around the league has been faulty. I think that's one area where the Rangers could invest some money and get returns that amount to an investment for pennies on the dollar. If you really invest in all those aspects of well-rounded, complete baseball players in the minor leagues, 16, Joey, you can get results. So I know that the past hasn't been great in player development, though I also look at this team right now and I see Josh Young, who has made a real turn in the right direction. I see Wyatt Langford, who granted only spent 50 days or 50 games in the minor league system, but he should be a very good baseball player. I look at the rotation or the starting. I look at the pitching staff. I see Jack Leiter, who came through the player development system, and he is an established big league pitcher. Is he a little bit inconsistent? Yeah, he's also in his second full year, but he's capable of being a he's a capable big league starter right now, and he's capable of more. Kumar Rocker is a little bit inconsistent, maybe a lot inconsistent for a lot of people, but I think he's still in the development process. Jake Latz, what a wonderful story Jake Latz is, and that's a product of player development and long-term player development. So I wouldn't say that they haven't developed any prospects. They've got a team right now that's got some prospects on it. I do think that the Rangers went through a long period of time where they didn't, and I think it's imperative that the player development system gets a tune-up in terms of philosophy. Now, I haven't had a chance to talk to folks in player development about my theories, but I do think that is something that the Rangers definitely need to discuss internally. Um, Dang it, rarities! You just made me do another. That's 17. What's the latest on Cody Freeman? Cody's on rehab at. Did the Rangers just move him to AAA from AA? He's on rehab. He's been on rehab about a week at a full season minor league affiliate. I think he's probably got another, at least through this weekend, before I think he'd become an option. The Rangers are eager to get him up here. He's a high energy guy. Again, you know, Cody Freeman and the Little Rascals were a great story for a couple of weeks last year. I don't think anybody should count on Cody Freeman being a savior for this team. He's a great role player, and the Rangers need more of those. He's a fundamentally sound role player. You want him to bunt, or you are in a bunt situation, he knows what he needs to do. He will make contact. Those are intangible qualities that the Rangers need. So the Rangers definitely need him. I wouldn't count on Cody to make a gigantic change in this organization's offensive abilities, but they need to win more games on the margins, and he can help them do that. What's the latest on guys who could help in the bullpen? Teodo, Diaz, Spores. Josh has just come off of kind of a pitching maintenance program and is back pitching. Haven't checked on Emiliano Teodo or Alexis Diaz lately, mostly because honestly, the bullpen hasn't been a huge issue. The bullpen's really performing well. Chris Martin has been up and down for sure. That is a question that will be answered over the next couple of weeks. But, Peyton Gray's been great. Gavin Collier's been really good. The Rangers have found some guys from their minor league system to help out in the bullpen right now. It would be great for Teodo to be able to contribute. Same thing with Jose Corniel as a starter or reliever. All these guys got a late start on the season, so it's going to be a little bit more time, I think, before the Rangers feel they've got a really complete picture on them. Rarities also asked, will Seager get some rehab time in AAA before coming back to the team? Here's another thing where Corey's a little bit different. Doesn't really like rehab assignments. Likes to come back, and he has, in his track record, has come back very quickly and very quickly gotten back into right into the routine of things and hitting. Now, the difference this year is he's off to the worst start of his career. He will have missed a month when he gets back. I think he's going to have to make at least 2 starts in the minor leagues before the Rangers are ready to activate him. It's just a guess. All I can give you at this point in time. Charles, how is Josh Smith? Josh is out of the hospital. I think he was going to be at the ballpark tonight or tomorrow. He's been cleared to come back to the ballpark. He's still got some ways to go in terms of building up strength, and then he's got to start the baseball progression. I think Josh is middle of June before being ready in a best case scenario, and the Rangers could use him back in the utility role. He wasn't off to a good offensive start or a good defensive start at second base, but he's a good utility player. Has ability to do the things the Rangers need to do to create runs, to optimize run scoring situations. But it's still 2 weeks away. It's a really unfortunate situation that he had the viral meningitis. I'm happy that he's been cleared health-wise. happy that he's back at home. They've got a newborn baby that they had their first child last off season. I know it's been stressful for his wife Claire. I know it's got to be hard for a new dad to have spent a week away from a newborn in the hospital. And you're also worried that you want to make sure that nobody else in your family gets ill. So that's been a really stressful situation, but I think he's in a good frame of mind. Haven't texted with him in a couple days, but I will either see him tonight or tomorrow. Okay. Jeremy, is Rocker's long-term role long reliever versus starter? I don't think it's long reliever. I think if the Rangers are going to look at him as a reliever at any point in time, it's going to be a closer and say, go and blow, man. Turn up your velocity, you know, be comfortable with that slider and just go. 2 pitches, 1 inning, go all out. Let's see you, toy with 100. But the business model of baseball is still this. A starter is more valuable than just about any reliever. Now, if you're a fifth starter, and you're a $10 million value, which is really what a fifth starter is about worth, maybe there are some closers that are obviously worth more than $10 million. But I think the Rangers are nowhere near at this point in time making a call on Kumar Rocker as a reliever. And a long reliever, unless the Rangers are going to try and reinvent the bullpen and piggyback a bunch of guys, which I see no need for them to do right now, there's no plan for him to be a long reliever. None. That would be a last resort kind of move before you release a guy. All right, Arnold, the Nicky Lopez signing is puzzling. We have plenty of young players deserving of a chance. Who deserves a chance right now? Cody Freeman is still in the rehab process. The players who would have been really great options, Devin Fitzgerald, were traded for Mackenzie Gore. If you're looking for middle infielders, your best bet right now is Cam Cauley. And again, I think it's time for the Rangers to be a little bit less aggressive on player development and let guys really, really excel at the minor league levels. Cam this year is at AAA Round Rock, and he's hitting 243, 357, 370, 728. That's nice. It's nice for a guy who's really young for his league, But I want that guy thriving at AAA before I'm bringing him up. I don't want to bring him up and say, okay, we're going to put you into a utility role guy for a couple of weeks and see what you can do. He's going to play, and that kind of player needs runway. And right now, the Rangers are not in a position to give a guy runway. Come August or come July, if this is a complete disaster, yes, maybe then, and you say, we're going to give you a half season in the big leagues to really get the league under you. But not yet. And really, I don't know. When you say we have, I'm sorry, I don't mean to be yelling at you, Arnold. I really don't. But when you say we have plenty of young players deserving of a chance, I think half of the Rangers' problem is that they are very thin in the minor league system. They don't have advanced prospects who are ready to play in the big leagues. Kev, I'm not hopeful about tonight's game against Arrighetti. Preview this weekend series with KC. How do the Rangers stack up against Kolek, Lugo, Waka? Kevy, listen. I can't predict from one game to another with this team. Look ahead 2 days, impossible. I think right now you have to say that the Rangers offense. Look, the Rangers got no hit by a guy with an 8.36 ERA, and a guy who was making his major league debut. They got shut down last night by a guy with a 5.75 ERA. The Rangers offense right now, you have to look at it this way. Until proven otherwise, the Rangers offense is at a disadvantage going into every game. So your best hope is that the pitching staff can come out and do what they do, and that the offense can somehow muster 4 runs. That's it. So if you're asking me how the Rangers stack up against the Royals trio of pitchers, I think offensively, it's an uphill battle. It's an uphill battle against everybody. They are what, 2-4 right now against Houston over the last 10 days. The Astros had the worst ERA in the major leagues, or the second worst. So if that's what you've done against that team, you're at a disadvantage against basically everybody. Dustin, you've asked about John Taylor and Dylan Dreiling. I can't really give you answers right now. I think that Dreiling will definitely go to AAA sometime this season. Not sure on Taylor. Uh, Again, all I can say is that from my perspective, I am more an advocate of longer, particularly with the offensive players. I am more an advocate of longer, more patient, more refined development programs, for whatever that's worth. Rarities, do you get any Rangers gear from the clubhouse for yourself? No, no free stuff for reporters, no autographs, no nothing. We don't get anything. There is a program occasionally, a very great charitable foundation, the Do It for Durrett Foundation, that is run by some of the Rangers media groups. I participate in it. Mostly there's an auction that involves a dinner with me, and second place is 2 dinners with me. But Rangers players have for a long time, and players around the league have been very, very giving in that regard. But no, nobody takes any stuff from the clubhouse for their own use. Nobody takes it for their kids. That's just off limits. Giovanni, we're closing in on an hour, but I want to get to these. How much time does the front office give the team before they make a decision to buy or sell at the deadline? Giovanni, I think you don't make the decision until 2 weeks or so before the deadline. I do think you can spend the next 6 weeks planning, and I think it's a worthwhile exercise because there are some valuable pieces here, and there's a real need to redo this minor league system. So I would spend as much time as possible game planning. All you can do at the big league level, with nobody at the minor league level who's going to really help you, all you can do right now is watch this team and sit back and in your off hours, non-game hours, work out plans on how you would rebuild the organization if necessary. Because it's going to be a big task, and it's going to be complicated. Ben Kaysen, if Texas goes nuclear at the deadline, do you think Young, Duran, Latz could be traded? I definitely think Young and Duran could be traded. Both are ARB guys. Both would be going into their second year ARB. And I think, there would be a real market for third baseman. And certainly, I think on a championship club, Duran's a very valuable regular utility guy, a Chris Taylor type, to make it a big comp. On Latz, I really don't know. I do not know on what you would do with Jake Latz because he's not arbitration eligible yet. And if you trade DeGrom and Evaldi, if you trade DeGrom and Evaldi, you have either openings in your rotation, and Jake would love to start, or you finally have a closer that maybe you can look to with unique skills because he's got the ability to go 2 innings. So he's cheap. He'd be valuable to teams, but he's cheap to you, and he could fill a number of roles, and you'd have multiple year control. Now, the difference here is Jake is 30, older than a typical young player, but I'd be intrigued in keeping Jake Latz. Now, a lot of that may be determined by the market. If somebody wants to overpay you, you have to be in a position where you're willing to consider it. And again, that's part of what this whole process is. I don't want on July 25th, the Rangers to have to be juggling, do we trade him and what's the value then? Identify the value now. Know what the threshold you'd have to meet to trade guys, and then be in position on July 30th to make those moves when teams come calling and with serious offers. Ben also asked, what would you say Skip Schumacher's main messaging is so far as manager? Do you think he's communicating clearly? Yeah, I do. I think he's very clear. I think there's. Oh, did we get to 20, Joey? Was that 20? Because there was an in there. But I do think he's very clear in how he messages. I think he's also very positive in how he messages. I think there's still some getting used to the messaging throughout the clubhouse when you've got a new manager. But listen, Skip Schumacher is not the issue here. The issue is that the players are not performing. The deeper issue may be that some of the evaluations were not great. But neither Bruce Bochy nor Skip Schumacher, in my mind, were liabilities. I think they're assets, and I do really love how energetic Skip is. I do love the fact that he's very involved on the field. You know, he walks the field and talks to players. He throws BP, which is not necessary, but it's good to be involved. And the messaging I think he wants there is to his coaches, hey, I'm not going to put myself above anything I ask you to do. I think his coaches are energized, and I think they are very active, and they have their own voice. I just think that this team, you know, may have to face the facts, face a fact, and that fact is that what appears to be that 2023 was an outlier, and this team didn't really have a contention window. It maximized 1 year, and I mean the theoretical question I think I've got to ask you guys. And I'd love to hear your answers on X or via email, is this. I think almost any organization would say a decade with a World Series is a worthwhile decade. Now, what I would ask you is if the Rangers don't have a winning record this year, they will have had a World Series, and the other 9 years in that decade would be losing or non-winning seasons, because there was that 81 and 81 in there. And so is that worth it? Would you go through 9 losing seasons to have one outlier World Series? I don't know. I don't know how fun the last decade has been for Ranger fans. That's the question. And I get everybody's frustration. I get the fans' frustration. I understand it. Winning championships is hard. Winning is hard in this league. And that's why I've always said, even going back to 2011, appreciate years like that. The Rangers got everything that they possibly could in 2011, with the exception of raising the flag. That was a championship team. It really was. And Ranger fans should feel that way. The 2023 team was world champions, and they did raise a flag. And so it's just hard for me to figure out how fans view this whole decade. I get the frustration now, and that's part of the beauty of being a fan, is you can have one emotion one week and a completely different emotion the next. But as I look back on this decade of Ranger baseball, I'm just wondering how overall fans view it, what lens they view it through. All right, guys, we're at 58 minutes. I think we've pretty much handled all the topics. I will say, Giovanni, I'm trying to get into a story about the ballpark and the ballpark factors that will handle the juiced ball factor. I do think there's been some factors that have brought ball flight down a little bit over the last 3 years. I haven't gotten any answers from anybody on it yet. So I'll get to that in a story. I get also Texas Clubhouse saying I don't get to tear it all down. With Seager and Langford on the way back, am I crazy to think the AL West is still very winnable? So we'll leave it on this. Rangers are 5 games under 500 right now. They're looking at a June in which they will play 2/3 of their games on the road. They're not a good team on the road and haven't been for some time. They may get Langford and Seager back in that stretch, and their offense may perform better. But the chances of them having a really hot streak, just based on the amount of time they're on the road in June, seem minimal. So let's say they finish out the month of May with a series against they win 2 of 3 against Kansas City, and they win today. So that's 3 games. So they'd be 2 games under 500. I think your best case scenario in June is to play 500 ball. Okay? So you're still 2 games under 500 going into July. That's when the schedule turns entirely in the Rangers' favor in terms of home games. They haven't hit at home. Now, if they start hitting at home in July, maybe they roll off a real hot streak that puts them in position to really capitalize on this division if it's not running away from them. But I also think you have to also consider this team hasn't gotten back to 500 for a while. The odds are against them playing really hot baseball in June. And so you have to consider that you may be well under 2 games below 500 come the start of July. And at that point in time, the task becomes that much more difficult. So those are all the things that that the Rangers front office has to consider. And I do think it's a complicated situation to work through, but I think with each game that goes on, you get a better picture of this team. And right now, a third of the way through the season, I still see a struggling offense that struggles with maximizing whatever their skill sets are. So, all right. So I'm going to leave it at that, guys. I hope this was worth it. We topped an hour. First time ever topping an hour. We had the counter top off at 20. See if we can break that next time. We'll do this next week at some point in time. I need to go back through the schedule because we'll be in St. Louis Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I will be traveling back Thursday. Maybe next Thursday afternoon would be good. Listen, if you like this and you're still here and you've got other Ranger fans in your life, please tell them about this live stream and the idea that they could join us. Please like the video. Please subscribe to the channel. Please keep your comments coming. And most of all, if you're not a subscriber to the Dallas Morning News yet, particularly online, give us a shot. There are some 25-cent specials for 4 months. I think that the writing and the analysis is all very complete, from me to Sean McFarland to columnist Kevin Sherrington and Tim Kalishaw, and that's just on the Rangers. We obviously cover all of Dallas sports, so I would really appreciate it if you would give the Dallas Morning News and DallasNews.com another try if you've gone away from us for a while. So with that, I'm going to leave it. Everybody say thanks to producer Joey and his fabulous counter, and we will be back next week. Take care.